Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it. Then, let's evaluate together. The Azure Resort in Miami was a vision of excess. A glittering playground for the rich and fabulous. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbows across the grand ballroom, where the clink of champagne flutes mingled with the sultry beats of the weekend's latest hit. The air carried a heady mix of Dior perfume, salty ocean breeze, and the faint tang of margaritas. Guests in sequined gowns and tailored tuxedos swirled around their laughter sharp, their eyes sharper, scanning for the next big Instagram moment. It was the kind of night where you either belonged or you didn't. Hannah Jackson didn't. Not in their eyes, anyway. She stepped into the ballroom, her light blue linen dress fluttering softly against her sun-kissed skin. Her thick curly black hair was swept up in a loose bun, a few strands framing her warm brown face. She was striking, but not in the way this crowd valued. No diamonds, no designer labels, just quiet elegance. Her heart thudded as she felt the weight of 100 stares. I don't belong here, she thought, gripping the invitation tighter. But I'm not here for them. I'm here for Hope Rising. Hannah, 32, was the co-founder of Hope Rising, a non-profit that built futures for kids in underserved communities. She'd grown up in Miami's Overtown, where dreams were often crushed under the weight of poverty. Back in high school, she'd been the girl with second-hand clothes and a stubborn streak, earning straight A's while dodging taunts about her ghetto roots. Now she was a quiet success, but the scars of those years lingered. When Vanessa Crawford, her old classmate turned Instagram queen, sent her an invite to this wedding/charity gala, Hannah had hesitated. The message was all sugary vibes. Come celebrate with me, girl. Show off that glow up. But something felt off. Still, Hannah saw a chance to pitch Hope Rising to big donors. People change, she told herself. Maybe Vanessa has. She was wrong. Across the room, Vanessa Crawford, 33, held court like a queen. Her crystal-encrusted gown shimmered, her crimson lips curved in a practiced smile. With 2 million Instagram followers, she was Miami's darling. Every post racking up likes faster than a South Beach sunset. But beneath the glam, Vanessa was restless. Her engagement numbers were slipping, and she needed a stunt to keep the spotlight. Inviting Hannah, the poor girl from high school who'd somehow made it big, was her cruel ticket to viral fame. Let's see how she handles this crowd, Vanessa thought, smirking at her inner circle. Ashley, a wannabe influencer with a sharp tongue, and Brittany, a cosmetics CEO with a knack for shade. Julian Carter, 35, leaned against the bar, sipping a margarita and scanning the room with a mix of boredom and amusement. Heir to a real estate empire, he was Miami's most eligible bachelor, tall with piercing green eyes, a jawline that could cut glass and a smirk that screamed trouble. His tailored black suit hugged his frame, but his vibe was pure. I don't care. Julian had a reputation for savage one-liners, using humor to keep people at arm's length. A bad breakup years ago had left him wary of trust, but he hid it well. Look at that dress, he muttered to no one, eyeing a guest's over-the-top gown. Bet it cost more than my assistant's salary, and she's still not pulling it off. Then there was Elliot Hayes, 30, a freelance journalist who'd been smitten with Hannah since interviewing her for a local paper, with his messy brown hair, rumpled blazer, and a grin that screamed, I'm trying too hard. Elliot was the opposite of smooth. He'd grown up as the uncool kid, always one step behind the popular crowd, and his crush on Hannah was his shot at proving he could win at something. Spotting her across the room, he grabbed a tray of champagne flutes. Bad idea, and weaved through the crowd. Hannah, you look... Wow, like super glowy, he blurted, only to trip over a guest's stiletto. The tray wobbled, glasses clattering to the floor. Oh crap. I mean shoot. I'm fine. You okay? I mean you're more than okay. His face turned tomato red as laughter rippled around him. Hannah stifled a smile, her nerves easing. "I'm good, Elliot. Thanks for the enthusiasm." His awkwardness was oddly comforting, a reminder of the real world outside this glitzy bubble. But the bubble was about to burst. Vanessa glided toward Hannah, her smile as sharp as a blade. "Hannah, girl, you made it," she cooed, air-kissing her cheeks. "Love the minimalist vibe. So authentic." Her tone dripped with condescension, and Ashley, live streaming on her phone, zoomed in. "Y'all check out this Luke," Ashley whispered to her followers. "Charity chic, but make it flop." Before Hannah could respond, Brittany accidentally bumped into her, splashing red wine across her dress. The stain bloomed like a wound, dark and ugly. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," Brittany gasped, her eyes gleaming with malice. "I thought you were used to spills, from wherever you're from." The crowd tittered, phones flashing as guests snapped pics, Instagram stories lit up with hashtags, #weddingfail. Who wore it worse? Hannah's cheeks burned, her pulse racing. Memories of high school taunts, ghetto girl, go back to Overtown flooded back. She wanted to run, to disappear into the Miami night. But she didn't. She grabbed a napkin, dabbing at the stain with steady hands. "No worries, Brittany," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Wine's universal, right? Goes with every vibe." The comeback was subtle, but it landed. A few guests raised eyebrows, impressed. Despite themselves, Julian, still at the bar, straightened up. She didn't flinch, he thought. Who is this woman? Her poise, her refusal to crumble, sparked something in him, a curiosity he hadn't felt in years. He set down his drink, eyes locked on her. Elliot, meanwhile, wasn't having it. "Hey, that was not cool," he shouted, pushing through the crowd. His foot caught on a tablecloth and crash. He tumbled into a dessert table, sending cupcakes flying. "I'm okay," he yelled, a cupcake stuck to his blazer. But those cakes, total goners. The room erupted in laughter, the tension breaking like a popped balloon. Even Hannah couldn't help but chuckle, her heart lifting despite the sting. Lila, a 25-year-old server with a quick wit and a love for TikTok trends, saw her chance. She accidentally brushed past Brittany, dropping a powdered donut onto her sparkling gown. "Shoot my bad," Lila said, her face a mask of fake innocence. "Guess it's a dessert kind of night," Brittany shrieked, swatting at the powdered sugar now dusting her dress. "This is couture," she wailed, stomping off as guests snickered. Lila caught Hannah's eye and winked a silent, "I got you." Vanessa's smile tightened. This wasn't going as planned. Hannah was supposed to break, not steal the show. She waved at Marcus, a burly security guard with kind eyes and a reluctant frown. "Marcus, could you check Hannah's gift? I heard it's suspicious." Her voice was all sugar, but her intent was poison. The crowd hushed, sensing fresh drama. Marcus approached Hannah, his voice low. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I gotta check your gift. Just protocol." Hannah nodded, handing over a small package wrapped in craft paper and twine. It was a painting she'd created herself, a vibrant abstract of Miami's skyline meant to symbolize hope. Marcus unwrapped it carefully, revealing the artwork. Instead of gasps of admiration, the crowd jeered. "A painting? What, from a thrift store?" Ashley scoffed, her phone still recording. "So budget?" Brittany added back from her gown crisis. Hannah's throat tightened, but she stood tall. "It's from the heart," she said simply. "That's what matters." Her words were quiet, but they carried a weight that silenced a few onlookers. Elliot, still picking frosting off his blazer, couldn't take it. "That's art! You snobs!" he yelled, waving his arms. "You wouldn't know beauty if it hit you in the face." Which, I don't recommend. His outburst drew more laughs, but it also drew Vanessa's ire. "Get him out of here," she hissed to Marcus, who sighed but didn't move. Hannah stepped in. "He's fine, Vanessa. Let's not make this a bigger deal than it is." Julian watched it all, his smirk fading. Hannah wasn't just holding her ground, she was commanding it. He pushed off the bar and headed toward the resort's garden, where he saw Hannah slip away, her shoulders tense, but her head high. The night air was warm, the scent of jasmine mingling with the distant crash of waves. Hannah stood by a fountain, her fingers tracing the wine stain on her dress. She looked vulnerable, but not broken. "Hey," Julian said, his voice softer than usual. "You got some kind of superpower to stand up to that crowd, 'cause I'm pretty sure I'd have bolted." His tone was teasing, but his eyes were serious, searching her face. Hannah turned, startled but composed. "No superpowers," she said, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "Just don't want them to think they've won." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of pain. Julian stepped closer, the moonlight catching the green in his eyes. "You've got a vibe they'll never get," he said, his fingers brushing hers for a fleeting moment. The touch was light, but it sent a jolt through Hannah, her breath catching. Their eyes locked, the world narrowing to just them. The hum of the party, fading, the fountain's soft trickle. The only sound. It was a moment that felt like it could spark something bigger, something neither of them expected. But then, crash. Elliot burst into the garden, tripping over a planter and sending a cascade of pebbles flying. "Hannah, I wanted to check if you're okay," he panted, oblivious to the mood he'd shattered. "Also, flowers are nice, right? I was going to get you some, but I kinda lost my wallet." He patted his pockets, then froze, realizing he'd interrupted. "Oh, bad timing." Julian raised an eyebrow, half amused, half annoyed. "You should try gardening, man. You've got a talent for wrecking plants." Hannah laughed, the tension easing, but her heart was still racing from Julian's touch. Elliot, undeterred, lowered his voice. "Hannah, I overheard Vanessa and Ashley planning something worse, like next-level shady. I tried to record it, but..." He held up his phone, which now had a cracked screen. "I dropped it. Classic me, right?" His grin was sheepish, but his eyes were earnest. Hannah's stomach twisted. "What kind of plan?" she asked, her voice steady despite the dread creeping in. "I didn't catch it all," Elliot admitted, scratching his head. "But it's bad, like humiliate her in front of everyone bad. You should bounce, Hannah. I don't know, order us a pizza, chill somewhere else." Hannah shook her head, her jaw set. "I'm not running, Elliot. I've dealt with worse than Vanessa." Her words were firm, but her mind raced. What's she planning now? As they spoke, Vanessa's voice echoed from the ballroom, amplified by a microphone. "Everyone, we have a little issue with a guest's bag. For safety, we need to check it. Hannah, could you bring your purse up here?" The crowd murmured, phones raised ready for the next act in this social media circus. Hannah froze, her heart pounding. Julian's hand grazed her arm, a silent, "You got this." Elliot, meanwhile, was already halfway to the ballroom, muttering, "I'm not letting them do this." The night was about to get a whole lot messier. What was Vanessa's next move? And could Hannah hold her ground against a crowd hungry for drama? If this story's got you hooked, we want to hear from you. Have you ever been judged unfairly just for being yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and hit that subscribe button to catch the next chapter of Hannah's wild ride. Trust me, the tea's just getting hotter. The Azure Resort's ballroom pulsed with energy, the kind of electric buzz that only a Miami night could deliver. The weekend's beats had given way to a sultry scissor track, its rhythm weaving through the crowd like a warm breeze. The chandeliers glittered above, casting flecks of light on the marble floor, where guests in their designer threads sipped cocktails and traded gossip. But for Hannah Jackson, the air felt heavy, thick with judgment. Her light blue linen dress, now marred by a wine stain, clung to her like a badge of defiance. She stood near the garden entrance, her heart still racing from Vanessa's latest jab, a purse check really, and the fleeting warmth of Julian Carter's touch. Hannah took a deep breath, her brown eyes scanning the room. "I'm not running," she told herself, though every fiber of her wanted to bolt. Growing up in Overtown, she'd faced worse than snobby influencers, kids who'd mocked her, thrift store sneakers teachers who'd doubted her potential. She'd clawed her way to co-founding Hope Rising, a nonprofit that gave kids like her a shot at a better life. But this crowd with their Rolexes and Instagram filters made her feel like that kid again. "You're here for the kids," she reminded herself, "not for their approval." Julian lingered nearby, his green eyes tracking her every move. The millionaire playboy was used to commanding rooms, but Hannah was different. She didn't bow, didn't break, even when Vanessa and her posse tried to crush her. "She's got guts," he thought, swirling his margarita. His usual smirk softened into something else. Curiosity, maybe even respect. But he kept his distance, not ready to dive into whatever this feeling was. Not yet. Elliot Hayes, on the other hand, was all in. The lanky journalist was a walking disaster, his blazer still sporting a smear of cupcake frosting from his earlier tumble. He'd overheard Vanessa's plan to escalate the humiliation, and his crush on Hannah had him in full hero mode, well as heroic as a guy who tripped over his own feet could be. "We gotta do something," he hissed to Hannah, his voice a mix of panic and determination. Vanessa's got, like, evil villain vibes. I'm talking Loki-level shady. Hannah managed a small smile, her nerves easing low-key. "Huh? Let's not get carried away. Elliot, I can handle her." But her stomach twisted. Vanessa's purse check stunt was a new low, and the crowd was eating it up. Phones raised like vultures circling a kill. Lila, the quick-witted server, sidled up with a tray of mini sliders. Her braided hair gleamed under the lights, and her grin was pure mischief. "Girl, you're slaying out there," she whispered to Hannah. "That wine-stained comeback iconic TikTok would eat it up." She shot a glance at Elliot, who was fidgeting like a kid on too much Red Bull. "And you, Mr. Cupcake, need to chill before you take out another table." Elliot flushed. "I'm chill. Super chill. I just want to help Hannah. You know, be her knight in shining." Blazer." He patted his frosting-stained jacket, and Lila snorted. "Knight. More like court jester," she teased, handing Hannah a slider. "Eat queen. You need fuel to deal with these clowns." Hannah took the slider, grateful for Lila's vibe, but before she could bite, Vanessa's voice sliced through the music amplified by the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep the party safe, shall we?" She purred, her crimson lips curling. "Our dear guest, Hannah Jackson, brought a bag that needs checking. Just a precaution, you know. Marcus, could you assist?" The crowd hushed, eyes darting to Hannah. Marcus, the security guard, approached with a grimace. His broad shoulders tensed and his kind eyes flickered with apology. "Ma'am, I'm sorry," he murmured. "Gotta check your purse. Boss's orders." Hannah's heart sank, but she handed over her simple canvas tote. "Go ahead, Marcus," she said, her voice steady. "Don't let them see you shake." The crowd leaned in, phones recording hashtags like Pursegate trending in real time. Ashley's live stream was blowing up her captions, screaming, "Spilling all the tea tonight. Wedding drama." Marcus unzipped the bag, pulling out a notebook, a Hope Rising flyer, and a small photo of Hannah with a group of kids from her program. Nothing suspicious, just the essentials of a woman on a mission. The crowd's anticipation fizzled, a few guests muttering in disappointment. Vanessa's smile faltered, but she recovered fast. "Well, isn't that quaint?" she said, her tone dripping with shade. Hannah's really leaning into that charity chic aesthetic. So inspiring. The sarcasm stung, but Hannah stood taller. It's not about aesthetics, Vanessa, she said loud enough for the mic to catch. It's about kids who deserve a future. That's why I'm here. Her words were simple, but they hit like a punch. A few guests clapped, caught off guard by her poise. Julian's eyes narrowed. Impressed. She's not just tough. She's smart, Elliot. However was done with subtlety. That's right, he shouted, pushing forward. Hannah's a freaking hero. You guys are just jealous, 'cause she's got heart, and you've got, filters. His voice cracked and he tripped over a chair, sending a stack of napkins flying. I'm good, he yelled, scrambling up. The crowd roared with laughter, and even Hannah couldn't hold back a giggle. Elliot's chaos was a wrecking ball, but it was her wrecking ball. Leela seized the moment, accidentally bumping into Ashley and knocking her phone mid-live stream. Oh, my bad. Lila chirped, her eyes twinkling. Guess my hands are as clumsy as this guy's. She jerked a thumb at Elliot, who grinned like he'd won an Oscar. Ashley screeched, diving for her phone as her followers spammed LMAO in the comments. Vanessa's patience snapped. She stormed to the stage, her gown swishing like a villain's cape. This is my night, she hissed into the mic, her voice losing its polished edge. And I won't let some nobody ruin it. The word nobody hung in the air, raw and ugly. The crowd gasped, sensing the mask slip. Ashley froze her live stream, capturing Vanessa's meltdown. This is bad, she thought, suddenly questioning her loyalty to the queen bee. Hannah's chest tightened, but she stepped forward, her voice calm but fierce. I'm not here to ruin anything, Vanessa. I came to support your charity gala to help kids. If that's a problem, maybe you should ask yourself why. The room went silent, the weight of her words sinking in. A few guests nodded their phones. Lowering, Julian's smirk returned, but it was laced with admiration. She's turning the tables, he thought. Tyler Hudson. The groom watched from the sidelines, his brow furrowed. At 29, he was a rising tech entrepreneur, handsome in a boy-next-door way, but trapped under his family's expectations to maintain a perfect image. He'd always liked Hannah. She'd mentored him years ago, helping him pitch his first startup. Seeing Vanessa tear into her now stirred something in him. This isn't the woman I thought I was marrying, he realized. He caught Hannah's eye, offering a small conflicted nod. But Vanessa wasn't done. She waved at Marcus again. Escort Mr. Clumsy out, she ordered, pointing at Elliot. He's disrupting my event. Marcus hesitated, his jaw tight. He liked. Hannah respected her quiet strength and Elliot's antics, while messy were harmless. Ma'am, I don't think he started, but Vanessa cut him off. Do it, or you're fired. Hannah stepped in, her voice firm. Vanessa, enough. Elliot's staying. He's my guest. The crowd murmured, surprised by her authority. Elliot's eyes widened, his crush hitting new heights. You're the best. Hannah, he blurted, then winced. I mean, thanks for the backup. Julian couldn't resist. He sauntered over, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Great party, Vanessa. Nothing says charity gala like bullying your guests. His words drew chuckles, and Vanessa's face reddened. She shot him a glare, but Julian just raised his glass, unfazed. This guy's trouble, Hannah thought, but she couldn't deny the spark in his eyes, or the way it made her pulse race. The tension was palpable, but Lila kept the vibe light. She passed by with a tray of mini tacos, whispering to Hannah, You're giving main character energy, girl. Keep slaying. Hannah smiled, grateful for the ally, but her mind was on Vanessa's next move. What's she planning? she wondered, her gut telling her the worst was yet to come. Elliot, still buzzing from Hannah's defense, decided to play detective. He crept toward Vanessa's VIP table where she was huddled with Ashley and Brittany. His plan: record their convo with his cracked phone. I'm gonna save Hannah, he thought, feeling like a budget James Bond. But as he leaned in, his elbow knocked over a candle, sending wax dripping onto Ashley's purse. What the Ashley yelped, spinning around. Elliot dove under the table, his phone slipping from his hand. Crap, 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 he muttered, scrambling to grab it. Vanessa's voice was low, venomous. We need to up the ante. Hannah's not breaking. Let's make sure everyone sees her for the fraud she is. Ashley hesitated, her loyalty wavering. This is getting extra. What if it backfires? Vanessa snapped. It won't. I'm Vanessa Crawford. I don't lose. Elliot's heart raced. He'd caught enough to know Hannah was in trouble, but his phone was now stuck under Brittany's heel. Classic me, he groaned. He crawled out only to bump into Lila, who was passing with a tray of drinks. Dude, you're a walking disaster, she said, but her grin was fond. What's the tea? Vanessa's planning something bad, Elliot whispered, retrieving his phone. I gotta tell Hannah. He sprinted toward her, only to trip over a rug and crash into a waiter, sending a tray of margaritas flying. I'm fine, he yelled, soaked in lime juice. The crowd laughed, and even Julian snorted. This guy's a one-man sitcom, he muttered. Hannah caught Elliot's eye, her expression a mix of amusement and concern. Elliot, you okay? She asked, helping him up. He nodded, panting. Hannah. Vanessa's got a plan. Something about making you look like a fraud. I didn't get it all, but it's shady. AF. Her stomach dropped. A fraud. She'd spent years building, hope rising, pouring her heart into every project. The idea of Vanessa twisting that into a lie hit hard, but she squared her shoulders, her resolve hardening. Thanks, Elliot, she said. I'll handle it. Julian overheard his smirk fading. He stepped closer, his voice low. You sure you want to keep playing their game? I can get you out of here. No questions asked. His offer was tempting, but Hannah shook her head. I'm not running, she said, her eyes fierce. Not from her. Before Julian could respond, a commotion erupted at the VIP table. Vanessa stood, her face pale, clutching a massive bouquet of roses. Who sent these? She demanded, her voice shrill. The card, written in Elliot's scrawled handwriting, read, To Hannah, my hero, Elliot. The delivery guy had mixed up the names, and now Vanessa was waving the flowers like evidence of a crime. The crowd buzzed, phones flashing as Ashley's live stream exploded with OMG comments. Elliot froze his face, a mix of horror and pride. Surprise? He squeaked, and the room dissolved into laughter. Hannah's lips twitched, her heart lifting despite the chaos. But Vanessa's eyes locked on her, burning with rage. This isn't over, that look said. The Miami sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of coral and gold. At the oceanfront pavilion, a sleek venue just a mile from the Azure Resort, the city's elite gathered for another charity gala. Neon lights pulsed to the beat of Calvin Harris's latest EDM banger, and the air buzzed with the clink of martini glasses, the hum of South Beach gossip, and the faint scent of coconut sunscreen lingering from the day. Palm trees swayed outside their fronds, catching the glow of fairy lights strung across the open-air deck. It was a night made for Instagram flexes, but for Hannah Jackson, it was a battlefield. A week had passed since Vanessa Crawford's wedding disaster, where Hannah had been doused in wine, mocked for her handmade gift, and nearly humiliated by a purse check. The viral hashtags #weddingfail, #purse. Gates still stung, but Hannah wasn't hiding. She stood in the pavilion's entrance, her navy wrap dress hugging her curves, her curly black hair cascading over her shoulders. The dress was simple but elegant, a far cry from the stained linen of last week, yet the whispers followed her like a shadow. "That's the charity girl," a guest murmured, sipping a mojito, the one Vanessa dragged online. Hannah's stomach churned, but she lifted her chin. "I'm here for Hope Rising," she reminded herself. Her non-profit was close to securing a major grant, and this gala was her chance to charm the right donors. Julian Carter had invited her, a gesture that both thrilled and unnerved her. That moment in the Azure's garden, his hand brushing hers, his green eyes locking with hers, replayed in her mind like a song on loop. "He's just being nice," she told herself. "A guy like that doesn't fall for someone like me," but the spark she'd felt was undeniable, and it scared her as much as it excited her. Julian lounged by the bar, his tailored blazer unbuttoned, a whiskey in hand. At 35, he was Miami's golden boy, a real estate heir with a knack for turning heads and dodging commitment. His usual smirk was in place, but his eyes kept drifting to the entrance, waiting for Hannah. She'd gotten under his skin, a rare feat for someone who'd spent years keeping the world at arm's length. She's not like the others, he thought, recalling her fierce comeback at Vanessa's wedding. She's real, but the idea of letting her in, really letting her in, made his chest tighten. He'd been burned before, and trust wasn't his strong suit. Elliot Hayes, meanwhile, was a one-man chaos machine. The journalist had scored a +1 invite from Hannah, a fact that had him grinning like he'd won the lottery. His crush on her was no secret, though his attempts to impress her were comically doomed. Tonight he'd traded his rumpled blazer for a slightly less rumpled button-down, but his messy brown hair and nervous energy screamed, "I'm trying too hard," spotting Hannah. He grabbed his phone to snap a pic. Gotta capture her glow-up, but accidentally photographed a guest scarfing a donut. "Oh, crap. Nice vibes," he stammered, pocketing the phone as the guest glared. Lila, the sassy server from the wedding, was working the gala, her tray of mini empanadas balanced like a pro. Her braided hair bounced as she weaved through the crowd, dropping TikTok references with every step. "Hannah, you're giving main character energy tonight," she whispered, handing her an empanada. "That dress, a serve." She shot a side-eye at Elliot, who was fiddling with his phone. "And you, Mr. Cupcake, better not take out my tray. I'm not cleaning up another Elliot disaster." Elliot grinned, unfazed. "No disasters tonight, Lila. I'm on my A-game. Gotta protect Hannah from the haters." He puffed out his chest, only to bump into a waiter nearly toppling a stack of glasses. "I'm good," he yelped, catching one glass mid-air. Lila rolled her eyes. "A game, my butt. You're a walking TikTok fail compilation." Hannah laughed, the sound easing the knot in her chest. Lila and Elliot were her anchors, grounding her in a sea of judgment, but the sea was about to get rougher. Across the pavilion, a new player entered the game. Serena, Blake, Julian's ex-girlfriend. At 34, Serena was a supermodel with legs for days and a smile that could sell toothpaste. Her red gown hugged every curve, and her entrance was pure runway heads. Turned phones flashed, and the crowd parted like she was Moses Julian. "Darling," she purred, gliding toward him. "You still clean up nice." Julian's smirk faltered, but he recovered fast. "Serena, didn't know you were back in town." "Runway life. Treating you well." His tone was casual, but his eyes flicked to Hannah, who was watching from afar. Serena followed his gaze, her smile tightening. "Oh, always," she said, tossing her blonde hair. "But I miss us. Let's dance for old time's sake." She didn't wait for an answer, looping her arm through his and pulling him to the dance floor. Hannah's heart sank. Serena was everything she wasn't. Glamorous, connected, the kind of woman who belonged in Julian's world. What was I thinking? She wondered, her fingers tightening around her clutch. He's out of my league. She turned away, forcing a smile as she chatted with a donor about Hope Rising, but her eyes kept drifting to the dance floor where Julian and Serena moved like they'd done this 100 times. Elliot ever? The loyal sidekick noticed her mood. "Hey, Hannah, you okay?" he asked, his voice soft. "That Serena chick's just flexing. You're like 1,000,000 times cooler." He tried to cheer her up by snapping another photo, but this time he caught Serena mid-donut scarf, her perfect image ruined by a smear of glaze. "Oh no," he gasped, then grinned. "Actually, this is gold. Should I post it?" Hannah shook her head, a laugh escaping. "Don't start a war, Elliot. I've got enough drama." But his goofy grin was infectious, and for a moment she forgot the ache in her chest. Lila, passing by, caught the vibe. "Elliot, you're a mess. But I respect the chaos," she said, handing him an empanada. "Hannah, don't let Miss Supermodel get in your head. You're the real deal," she leaned in, whispering. "And Julian's been eyeing you all night. Trust the vibes." Hannah wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at her. She threw herself into networking, pitching, Hope Rising with a passion that lit up her face. Her warmth drew a small crowd, and soon donors were scribbling checks impressed by her vision. But the whispers persisted. "She's with Julian Carter," a guest muttered. "No way." "She's not his type," another added. "Charity's cute, but she's out of her depth." Julian overheard his jaw tightening. He broke away from Serena mid-dance, ignoring her pout. "Gotta handle something," he muttered, heading toward Hannah. Serena's eyes narrowed, but she didn't follow. Instead, she pulled out her phone, typing furiously. "Let's see how long this lasts." She thought, her fingers crafting a subtle shade post. "Some people try too hard to fit in. Hashtag gala vibes." Meanwhile, Elliot was on a mission. He'd overheard Ashley at the wedding hinting at Vanessa's shady past, something about hacking a rival's Instagram to boost her own followers. If I can get proof, he thought, I can shut her down. He crept toward the VIP lounge where Ashley was sipping a mojito, her phone glued to her hand. Elliot, trying to be stealthy, grabbed a napkin to blend in, but accidentally knocked over a candle, sending wax dripping onto Ashley's purse. "What the hell?" she shrieked, spinning around. Sorry," Elliot stammered, diving for cover behind a potted palm. But he'd caught a snippet of Ashley's rant to Brittany. "Vanessa's freaking out. She thinks Hannah's stealing her shine. She's got something big planned for the next event." Elliot's phone miraculously recorded it. "Gotcha," he thought, only to realize he'd left his napkin on fire. "Oh, crap." He swatted at the flames, drawing stares. Lila swooped in, dousing the napkin with a glass of water. "Elliot, you're gonna get me fired," she hissed, but her grin was wide. "What's the tea?" "Vanessa's planning something worse," he whispered, showing her the recording. "I gotta tell Hannah." Lila nodded, impressed. "Okay, Mr. Disaster, you might actually pull this off." Back at the pavilion, Julian found Hannah wrapping up a pitch. "You're killing it out there," he said, his voice low, his smirk softer than usual. "Those donors didn't stand a chance." Hannah's cheeks warmed, but she kept her cool. "Just doing my job," she said, though her eyes lingered on his. The air between them crackled, the EDM beat fading to a hum. They moved to a quieter corner, the ocean glittering beyond the deck. Julian opened up a rare crack in his armor. "I used to think charity galas were just rich people flexing," he admitted. "But you make it mean something." "How do you do that?" His voice was earnest, almost vulnerable. Hannah hesitated, then spoke from the heart. "I grew up with nothing, Julian. Kids in my neighborhood didn't get chances. Hope Rising is my way of giving them what I fought for." Her passion lit up her face, and Julian was hooked. He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. "You're not like anyone I've ever met," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The moment was electric. The world shrank to just them, the neon lights casting a soft glow on Hannah's skin. Julian leaned in, his breath warm against her cheek. Their lips met a kiss that was both tender and fierce, like a wave crashing on the shore. Her heart raced, his hands steadying her, the kiss deepening as the music pulsed. It was a promise, a spark that could ignite something unstoppable. But then Crash Elliot burst in, clutching a tray of empanadas he'd swiped to blend in. "Hannah, I, brought snacks," he blurted, oblivious to the mood. The tray wobbled, empanadas sliding to the floor. Crap, not again. Julian pulled back, half laughing, half annoyed. "Dude, your timing is tragic," he said, shaking his head. Hannah laughed, her cheeks flushed from the kiss. "Elliot, you're a hero, but maybe stick to journalism." Elliot grinned, then sobered Hannah. "I got something." Ashley spilled some tea about Vanessa. "She's planning something big to make you look bad, like really bad." He showed her the shaky recording. Ashley's voice. Clear. Vanessa's freaking out. Hannah's stealing her shine. Hannah's heart sank. Another attack. She'd survived the wedding, but this felt bigger, more personal. Julian's hand squeezed hers, a silent, "I'm here." But before she could respond, a donor approached, gushing about hope rising. Hannah forced a smile, slipping back into work mode. Inside, doubt crept in. "Can I keep fighting this?" Across the pavilion, Serena watched her phone buzzing with likes on her shady post. She smirked, sensing an opportunity. Later that night, she sent an anonymous tip to a gossip blog. "Is Hannah Jackson using Julian Carter to climb the social ladder? #gala tea." The post went viral, and by morning, Hannah's inbox was flooded with hate comments. Fraud gold digger. Out of her league. Elliot, oblivious to the online storm, was plotting his next move. He'd caught Ashley's slip about Vanessa's Instagram hack, and he was determined to dig deeper. But as he left the gala, he tripped over a string of fairy lights, sending them flickering out. "I'm fine," he yelled, as Lila cackled. "Elliot, you're a legend, but you owe me a new light show." The Miami morning was a symphony of light and sound, with sunlight glinting off the turquoise waves and seagulls squawking over South Beach. Inside her modest Coconut Grove apartment, Hannah Jackson sat cross-legged on her couch, a half-empty Starbucks cup in hand. The aroma of caramel macchiato mingled with the faint scent of jasmine from a candle she'd lit to calm her nerves. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, notifications piling up from last night's gala. The gossip blog's post is Hannah Jackson using Julian Carter to climb the social ladder, had gala. Tea had gone viral, spawning a flood of hate comments. Fraud, wannabe, stick to your lane. Each one was a jab to her heart, reopening old wounds from her Overtown days when kids mocked her for dreaming too big. Hannah set the phone down, her brown eyes tracing the familiar cracks in her ceiling. She'd spent years building Hope Rising, pouring her soul into giving kids a shot at a future. But now the world saw her as a gold digger, a nobody trying to flex in a world that wasn't hers. Maybe they're right, she thought, her fingers tightening around the cup. Maybe I don't belong. But then she pictured her mom, a single mother who'd scrubbed floors to keep Hannah in school, whispering, "You don't need fancy clothes to shine, baby. You shine from the inside." The memories steeled her. I'm not done fighting. Across town, at a sleek penthouse overlooking Biscayne Bay, Julian Carter paced his marble-floored living room, a black coffee in hand. The Miami skyline sparkled through floor-to-ceiling windows, but his mind was elsewhere on Hannah. That kiss at the gala, fierce and fleeting, had shaken him. He wasn't used to feeling this way, like his carefully guarded walls were crumbling. At 35, he'd mastered the art of keeping people at a distance, using his sharp humor to dodge anything real. But Hannah was different. Her passion, her refusal to bow, had him hooked. She's too good for this city's games, he thought, glancing at his phone. The gossip blog's post stared back, and his jaw clenched. Serena's behind. This, I know it. Elliot Hayes, meanwhile, was a one-man tornado in his cluttered little Havana apartment, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and dog-eared notebooks. He replayed the recording he'd snagged at the gala Ashley slip about Vanessa's plan to make Hannah look like a fraud. His cracked phone screen flickered, but the audio was gold. "This is it," he muttered, pumping a fist. His crush on Hannah was still a wildfire, but after seeing her kiss Julian, he'd accepted his role. Sidekick, not leading man. I'll be her hero anyway, he thought, picturing himself saving the day. Then he tripped over a stray sneaker, crashing into a lamp. "I'm fine," he yelled to no one, rubbing his shin. Back at Hannah's place. A knock broke her reverie. Lila. Her gala sidekick stood at the door, balancing a box of donuts and a grin. "Morning, Queen," she said, her braids bouncing as she kicked off her sneakers. "Brought some Krispy Kremes to fix your vibe. Those haters online, they're just jealous, 'cause you're out here slaying." She plopped onto the couch, popping a donut in her mouth. "Spill the tea. What's up with you and Mr. Millionaire?" Hannah sighed, sipping her coffee. "Nothing's up. That kiss was a moment. But he's Julian Carter. I'm not his type." Her voice was steady, but her heart ached. The gala had felt like a fairy tale until Serena's shadow and the gossip blog yanked her back to reality. Lila raised an eyebrow. "Girl, his type is you. I saw the way he looked at you like you were the only one in the room. Don't let Miss Supermodel or those trolls get in your head." She pulled out her phone, scrolling TikTok. "Look at Hope. Rising is trending. People are hyping your speech from the wedding. You're a vibe, Hannah. Own it." Hannah managed to smile, but doubt lingered. "Thanks, Lila. I need to focus on the kids, not drama." She glanced at her laptop, open to a grant proposal for Hope Rising. "That's what matters," she told herself, pushing thoughts of Julian aside. But Julian wasn't staying sidelined. He showed up at Hope Rising's office later that day, a low-key space tucked in Wynwood, its walls covered in murals and kid-drawn thank-you notes. Hannah was buried in paperwork, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked up startled as Julian leaned against the doorframe, his usual smirk in place. "Heard this is where the real MVPs hang out," he said, holding up a bag of Cuban sandwiches from a local spot. "Figured you could use some fuel." Hannah's heart skipped, but she kept her cool. "You didn't have to do that," she said, taking the bag. The scent of roasted pork and pickles filled the room, and her stomach growled. "But thanks." They sat at a folding table, unwrapping sandwiches, the tension between them simmering. Julian broke the silence, his voice softer than usual. "I saw the blog post. It's crap, Hannah. You're not what they say." He paused, searching her face. "I'm sorry. I let you walk out last night. I should have, I don't know, done something." Hannah's throat tightened. "It's not your job to fix my problems, Julian. I've been dealing with this stuff my whole life." She met his eyes, her voice steady but raw. "People like me, black from the hood, we don't get to make mistakes. One wrong move and they tear you down." Julian leaned forward, his green eyes intense. "Then let me help you fight. You don't have to do this alone." His hand grazed hers, a quiet promise. For a moment, Hannah wanted to believe him, to let herself fall, but fear held her back. What if he's just caught up in the moment? Before she could answer, Elliot burst in, clutching his phone like a lifeline. "Hannah, I've got the goods," he panted, only to trip over a stack of flyers, sending them fluttering. "I'm fine," he yelped, scrambling up. Julian raised an eyebrow, half amused. "This guy's gonna give me a heart attack," he muttered. Hannah laughed, the tension easing. "What good's Elliot?" she asked, bracing for chaos. Elliot held up his phone, the cracked screen glowing. "I recorded Ashley at the gala," she said. "Vanessa's planning something big to make you look like a fraud. And get this," she hinted. "Vanessa hacked some influencer's Instagram to get famous." His eyes sparkled with pride, but then he winced. "I, almost set her purse on fire getting it. Total accident." Hannah's jaw dropped. A fraud hacked accounts. The accusations hit hard, but they also lit a fire in her. "We need to get this to someone who can use it," she said, her mind racing. "Tyler might listen. He's not like Vanessa." Julian nodded, impressed. "Smart Hudson's got a conscience, even if he's stuck with a snake like her." He turned to Elliot, his tone teasing but warm. "Nice work. Disaster boy. You might just save the day." Elliot beamed, then promptly knocked over a water bottle. "I'm on it," he said, mopping it up with his sleeve. Lila, who'd slipped in behind him, snorted Elliot. "You're a legend, but you owe me a new floor." "What's the plan, Hannah?" "We take this to Tyler," Hannah said, her voice firm. "But we need to be careful. Vanessa's not stupid." She glanced at Julian, who gave her a nod. "He's with me." She realized her heart warming, despite her doubts. That night, at another glitzy Miami event, a fundraiser at the Perez Art Museum, Hannah, Julian, and Elliot put their plan in motion. The museum's sleek halls glowed with modern art, the crowd sipping rosé and snapping selfies with neon installations. Hannah wore an emerald green dress, simple but striking, her presence commanding, despite the whispers. "There's the gold digger," a guest murmured, scrolling the gossip blog. Julian overheard, his jaw tightening. "Keep talking," he muttered loud enough for them to hear. "See how that works out." Tyler was near the bar, his boyish face clouded with doubt. He'd seen the online hate piling up on Hannah, and it didn't sit right. When Hannah approached, he straightened his voice low. "Hannah, I'm sorry about Vanessa. I didn't know she'd go this far." He glanced at Elliot, who was clutching his phone like a grenade. "What's this about a recording?" Elliot, sweating, played the clip. Ashley's voice crackled through Vanessa's freaking out. "Hannah's stealing her shine. She's got something big planned." Tyler's face darkened, his fists clenching. "She's gone too far," he said, his voice tight. "I'll handle this." But Vanessa was one step ahead. She'd spotted Elliot's bumbling detective work and cornered him in a quiet hallway, her crimson nails glinting under the museum's lights. "You're out of your league, kid," she said, her voice icy. "Hand over that recording, and I'll make you insta-famous. Refuse, and I'll bury you." Her smile was a blade, but Elliot for once stood his ground. "I'm not cool, Vanessa," he said, his voice shaking but firm. "But I'm not selling out. Hannah." He turned to leave, only to trip over a velvet rope, sending a sculpture wobbling. "I'm fine," he yelled, catching it just in time. Vanessa's eyes narrowed, but before she could act, Marcus, the security guard, appeared. "Everything okay here?" he asked, his kind eyes fixed on Elliot. Marcus had seen enough of Vanessa's games to know she was trouble. Elliot nodded, clutching his phone, but in his panic, he dropped it right into Marcus's hands. Marcus glanced at the screen, then at Vanessa. "I'll hold on to this," he said, pocketing the phone. For now, Vanessa's face twisted with rage, but she stormed off her heels, clicking like gunfire. Elliot sagged with relief, then realized his mistake. "Oh no, Hannah's gonna kill me," he groaned. Back in the main hall, Tyler was ready to confront Vanessa, but she'd already spun a new narrative. She took the stage, her voice dripping with faux sincerity. "I want to apologize for any drama," she said, her eyes scanning the crowd. but I've heard troubling rumors about a guest misusing charity funds. For transparency, we'll investigate. Her gaze landed on Hannah. The implication clear. Hannah's heart stopped. Misusing funds. It was a lie, but a dangerous one. The crowd murmured, phones flashing as the hashtag #CharityScam began to trend. Julian stepped beside her, his hand brushing hers. "She's desperate," he whispered. "We've got this." But Hannah wasn't so sure. With Elliot's recording in Marcus's hands and Vanessa's lies spreading like wildfire, the stakes were higher than ever. The Perez Art Museum glowed like a beacon against the Miami night, its sleek glass walls reflecting the city's neon pulse. Inside, the fundraiser was in full swing, with modern art installations casting wild shadows over the crowd. The air buzzed with the clink of rosé glasses, the hum of Drake's latest track, and the sharp edge of gossip. Guests in tailored suits and shimmering gowns snapped selfies with neon sculptures, their Instagram stories tagged @ArtForACause. But beneath the glitz, a storm was brewing, and Hannah Jackson was at its center. Hannah stood near a vibrant Basquiat, painting her emerald green dress catching the light. Her heart pounded, Vanessa's accusation, misusing charity funds, ringing in her ears. The hashtag #CharityScam was trending, each notification a dagger to her reputation. She'd spent years building Hope Rising, pouring her soul into helping kids escape the poverty she'd known in Overtown. The idea that Vanessa could twist that into a lie made her stomach churn. But she wasn't alone. Julian Carter stood beside her, his hand brushing hers, a silent anchor. His green eyes were fierce, promising a fight. "We've got this," his touch said, but Hannah's doubts lingered. "Can I survive this?" Across the room, Tyler Hudson gripped a glass of bourbon, his boyish face etched with resolve. The recording Elliot had snagged Ashley's slip about Vanessa's plan to frame Hannah had shattered his illusions. At 29, Tyler was a tech entrepreneur trapped by his family's expectations, but Hannah's kindness had once given him hope. Now, seeing Vanessa's cruelty, he knew he had to act. "I'm done being her puppet." He thought, his jaw tight. He scanned the crowd for Vanessa, who was holding court by a neon installation, her crimson gown gleaming like a warning. Elliot Hayes, the accidental hero, was a nervous wreck. His cracked phone was now in Marcus's hands. The security guard's decision to hold on to it a wild card. Elliot's crush on Hannah had morphed into something deeper. Respect, maybe even purpose. He wasn't the leading man, but he'd be damned if he let Vanessa win. "I gotta fix this," he muttered, weaving through the crowd. His button-down was already wrinkled, his hair a mess, but his eyes burned with determination. Then he bumped into Lila, who was balancing a tray of mini key lime tarts. "Elliot, you're gonna take me out one day?" she teased, steadying the tray. "Where's your phone? Mr. Detective Marcus has it." Elliot groaned, rubbing his neck. "I screwed up. Lila Hannah's counting on me, and I'm out here dropping the ball. Literally." Lila smirked, handing him a tart. "Eat Chaos, King." "You're not done yet. Let's find Marcus and get that recording to Tyler." Hannah, meanwhile, felt the crowd's eyes boring into her. Whispers followed her like a shadow. "She's the one in the scam post. Thought she was legit." Her throat tightened. Memories of high school taunts. "Ghetto girl, go back to Overtown," flooding back. But she squared her shoulders, her voice steady as she pitched. Hope rising to a donor. "Our kids deserve a shot," she said, her passion cutting through the noise. The donor nodded, impressed, but the whispers didn't stop. Julian overheard his temper flaring. "Keep talking," he said loudly, his voice carrying. "See how that works out when you're begging for my investment." The gossipers flinched their phones, lowering. He turned to Hannah, his smirk softening. "You're tougher than this whole room combined," he murmured. "Don't let them forget it." His words warmed her, But the weight of Vanessa's lie was crushing. Tyler took the stage, his hands trembling as he gripped the mic. The crowd hushed, sensing drama. Vanessa's eyes narrowed, her smile tight. She'd warned him earlier, whispering, "Cross me and I'll tank your startup. Think about your family." But Tyler was done. "I need to set something straight," he said, his voice steady but raw. "This gala's about helping kids, but someone's been playing dirty to tear down a good person. Hannah Jackson doesn't deserve the lies being spread about her." The crowd gasped, phones flashing. Hannah's heart raced, hope flickering. Julian squeezed her hand, his eyes locked on Tyler. Vanessa stepped forward, her voice sugary. "Tyler, honey, let's not air personal drama. This is for charity." But Tyler wasn't backing down. He pulled out his phone, playing Elliot's recording. Ashley's voice crackled through the speakers. "Vanessa's freaking out. Hannah's stealing her shine. She's got something big planned to make her look like a fraud." The room went silent, the weight of the truth sinking in. Vanessa's face paled, her crimson lips parting in shock. "That's edited," she stammered, but the crowd wasn't buying it. Instagram lit up with reactions. "Vanessa's cancelled. Art for a cause." Ashley, caught in the crossfire, bolted for the exit, her live stream abruptly ending. Brittany, sensing the tide turning, muttered, "I'm out," and followed. Hannah stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "I'm not here to fight," she said, addressing the crowd. "I'm here for the kids who need us. Hope Rising is about hope, not hate. If you want to judge me by my work, not by lies." Her words were a beacon cutting through the chaos. The crowd erupted in applause, donors raising their glasses. Hashtags shifted. Hope Rising and #Hannah. Sleighs began trending, drowning out the hate. Vanessa's empire crumbled in real time. Her followers unfollowed in droves, her sponsors pulling out. She stood frozen, her gown suddenly looking garish under the neon lights. "You don't get it," she hissed at Hannah, her voice breaking. "I had to fight for everything. You just walked in and took it." The confession was raw, revealing the insecurity beneath her crown. Hannah met her gaze, unflinching. "I fought too, Vanessa. But I didn't have to hurt anyone to win." The crowd parted as Julian stepped onto the stage, his presence commanding. He took the mic, his smirk replaced by something fiercer. "Hannah Jackson's the real deal," he said, his voice carrying. "And if you're too blind to see that you don't belong here." He turned to Hannah, his eyes softening. "I've been an idiot, keeping people at arm's length. But you're worth letting in." He pulled a small canvas from his jacket, a miniature of the painting she'd brought to the wedding, a vibrant Miami skyline. "This is you," he said, his voice low, bright, bold, unstoppable. The moment was electric. Hannah's breath caught tears prickling her eyes. Julian stepped closer, ignoring the crowd, and kissed her a soft, steady promise that drowned out the noise. The crowd cheered, phones capturing the moment. But for Hannah, it was just them, the neon lights fading to a blur. Her heart soared, his arms grounding her, the kiss a vow to face the world together. Elliot, watching from the sidelines, felt a pang, but smiled. "She's happy," he said to Lila, who joined him with a tray of tarts. "That's what matters." He reached for a tart, only to knock the tray, sending key lime filling splattering onto his shirt. "I'm fine," he yelled as Lila cackled. "Elliot, you're a walking disaster, but you're our disaster," she said, tossing him a napkin. Tyler approached Hannah, his face heavy with regret. "I should have seen through Vanessa sooner," he said. "You helped me when I was starting out. I owe you. Hannah nodded, her voice gentle. Just be true to yourself, Tyler. That's enough. He smiled, a weight lifting, and walked away, ready to rebuild Serena Blake, who'd been lurking in the crowd, slipped out quietly. Her shady blog post had backfired, and Julian's public moment with Hannah was the final nail. She texted him later. You win, Carter. She's the real deal. Take care of her. Julian read it, then deleted it, his focus on Hannah. But the night wasn't over. As the crowd dispersed, Marcus found Elliot handing back his phone. You dropped this, he said, his kind eyes twinkling. And I made a copy of that recording. Thought it might come in handy. Elliot's jaw dropped. Marcus. You're the MVP, he said, only to trip over a chair, sending it clattering. Marcus chuckled, steadying him. Kid, you're a liability, but you've got heart. Hannah and Julian stood by the museum's terrace, the Miami skyline glittering beyond. You didn't have to do that, she said, holding the painting, her voice thick with emotion. Julian shrugged his smirk, returning. Yeah, I did. You're worth it, Hannah. They leaned into each other, the city's hum a backdrop to their quiet victory. The next morning, Hannah received an email from Vanessa. It wasn't an attack, but a confession. I was jealous. You were always loved without trying, and I hated you for it. I'm sorry. The words were raw, unexpected. A crack in Vanessa's armor. Hannah stared at the screen, her heart torn. Should she respond, or let Vanessa face her own consequences? The Miami sun sank into the Atlantic painting, the sky in streaks of pink and gold. South Beach buzzed with its usual chaos, tourists snapping selfies, street performers drumming on buckets, and the distant thump of reggaeton from a nearby club. But at the edge of the shore, where the sand met the sea, a quieter scene unfolded. Hannah Jackson stood barefoot, her toes sinking into the warm sand, her navy sundress fluttering in the breeze. Beside her, Julian Carter held her hand, his usual smirk softened by a warmth that hadn't been there before. The ocean stretched endless before them, its waves whispering promises of new beginnings. It had been a month since the Perez Art Museum fundraiser, where Vanessa Crawford's empire of lies had crumbled under the weight of truth. The viral recording, Ashley's confession about Vanessa's plan to frame Hannah, had shifted the narrative. Hashtags like #HopeRising and #HannahSlays had drowned out the hate, and Hope Rising's grant was secured, promising brighter futures for countless kids. But for Hannah, the real victory wasn't the applause or the donations. It was standing here hand in hand with Julian, knowing she'd faced the world's judgment and come out stronger. The beach was alive with laughter and music, courtesy of Hope Rising's latest event, a community festival for the kids they served. Colorful tents dotted the sand, offering face-painting snow cones and bounce houses. Kids darted around their squeals, mixing with the crash of waves. Hannah watched a girl with braided pigtails clutch a new backpack, her eyes wide with joy. This is why I fight. Hannah thought, her heart full. She'd grown up in Overtown, where dreams were often out of reach, but moments like this made every battle worth it. Julian squeezed her hand, his green eyes catching the sunset's glow. You pulled this off, Hannah, he said, his voice low but proud. These kids are lucky to have you. At 35, he'd spent years dodging anything real, using his millionaire status and sharp humor to keep the world at bay. But Hannah had changed that. Her strength, her heart had cracked, his walls wide open. He wasn't just falling for her. He was all in, and it scared him as much as it thrilled him. Hannah smiled, leaning into him. They're lucky to have us. She corrected, her voice teasing. You're not half bad with a snow cone machine. Carter. Julian laughed, a sound that felt freer than it had in years. Hey, I'm a man of many talents, he said, winking, Stick with me, and I'll master cotton candy next." Their banter was cut short by a familiar voice. "Yo, Hannah, Julian, you gotta see this." Elliot. Haze bounded over his sneakers, kicking up sand. At 30, he was still a walking disaster. His t-shirt stained with blue snow cone syrup, his messy brown hair flopping into his eyes. But there was a new confidence in him, a spark that hadn't been there before. His crush on Hannah had faded into a deep respect, and he'd found purpose in telling stories that mattered. "Check it out," he said, holding up his phone. "My article on Hope Rising just hit 10,000 shares. People are losing it over your work, Hannah." Hannah's eyes widened, a grin spreading across her face. "Elliot, that's amazing," she said, pulling him into a hug. "You're killing it." Elliot blushed, nearly dropping his phone. "I mean, it's all you," he stammered. "I just wrote the words. Well, and spilled some coffee on my laptop. But we're good." Lila now. Hope Rising's event manager strutted over her braids adorned with gold beads that caught the light. At 25, she'd traded her server apron for a clipboard and a megaphone, her TikTok-savvy energy perfect for rallying crowds. "Elliot, you're a legend, but you owe me a new shirt," she said, pointing to a syrup stain on her tank top. This guy tried to help with the snow cones and turned it into a crime scene. She flashed a grin, then turned to Hannah. "Girl, this festival is a serve. We're trending on TikTok. Hopefest is blowing up." Hannah laughed, the sound bright and free. "Leela, you're the real MVP," she said. "I couldn't have done this without you." Leela waved her off, striking a pose from spilling cocktails to slaying events. "I'm basically a superhero. Somebody call Marvel." The festival was a testament to Hannah's vision. Kids ran through obstacle courses, their laughter echoing. Parents chatted over plates of jerk chicken and empanadas, their faces relaxed for the first time in months. Volunteers, some inspired by Hannah's story, handed out school supplies, their smiles as bright as the Miami sun. Julian, true to his word, manned a snow cone station. His sleeves rolled up as he handed a cherry cone to a shy boy. "You're gonna rule the world, kid," he said, ruffling the boy's hair. The boy beamed and Hannah's heart swelled. "He's in this with me?" She thought, her love for him deepening. But not everything was perfect. Vanessa's email sent the morning after the fundraiser still lingered in Hannah's mind. "I was jealous. You were always loved without trying, and I hated you for it. I'm sorry." The words were raw, a glimpse into the insecurity that had driven Vanessa's cruelty. Hannah hadn't responded, unsure if forgiveness was possible. She hurt me, she thought, but she's hurting too. The thought was a quiet weight, one she wasn't ready to unpack. Elliot, oblivious to her inner turmoil, was in full chaos mode. He'd volunteered to MC the festival's talent show, a decision that was both brave and disastrous. "All right, Miami. Let's get hype," he shouted into the mic, only to trip over a speaker cable, sending it screeching. "I'm fine," he yelled as the crowd laughed. Lila grabbed the mic, saving the day. Elliot stick to writing, she teased, then launched into a hype speech that had kids cheering. "Who's ready to show their skills? Let's make some noise for Hope Rising." The talent show was a hit, with kids rapping, dancing, and even juggling. One girl, a 12-year-old named Maya, sang an original song about overcoming fear, her voice raw and powerful. Hannah's eyes misted memories of her own childhood dreams flooding back. She slipped away to the shore, needing a moment to breathe. Julian followed his steps, quiet on the sand. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft. Hannah nodded, her gaze on the horizon. "Just overwhelmed," she admitted. "This is everything I've worked for, but it's a lot." She turned to him, her brown eyes searching his. "You're really here for this, aren't you? Not just for me, but for them." Julian took her hands, his smirk gone. "I'm here for all of it, Hannah. You the kids, the messy, beautiful chaos of it. "You've got me for real." His words were a vow, and when he kissed her, it was slow and steady, the ocean's rhythm matching their own. The world faded, the sunset wrapping them in gold. Their love, a quiet strength that could weather any storm. Elliot, spotting them, grinned and turned away, giving them space. He'd found his own path, his article sparking interest from major outlets. Later that evening, as the festival wound down, he took the stage again, determined to redeem his MC flop. "Miami, you've been epic," he said, his voice steadier. "Hope Rising's about giving kids a shot, and Hannah Jackson's the heart of it. Let's keep supporting her." The crowd cheered, and Elliot miraculously didn't trip. But as he stepped off stage, he knocked over a stack of cups, shouting, "I'm fine." Lila cackled, filming it for TikTok. "Elliot, you're going viral for all the wrong reasons," she said, tossing him a towel. Tyler Hudson, who'd attended as a guest, approached Hannah, his face lighter than it had been in weeks. He'd ended things with Vanessa, his startup now free from her shadow. "You changed things, Hannah," he said, his voice earnest. "Not just for the kids, but for me. I'm figuring out who I am, thanks to you." Hannah smiled, her heart full. "Just keep being real, Tyler. That's all I ask." As the festival closed, Hannah and Julian handed out the last of the backpacks, each one stuffed with school supplies and hope. Maya, the singer, hugged Hannah tight. "You're like a superhero," she whispered. Hannah knelt, her eyes level with Maya's. "You're the superhero, kiddo," she said. "Keep singing." "Okay." Maya nodded, her smile brighter than the Miami moon. The night ended with a bonfire. The crowd gathered around as sparks danced into the sky. Lila led a group in a TikTok dance, her energy infectious. Elliot, trying to join, flailed wildly, earning laughs and cheers. Julian pulled Hannah close, his arm around her as they watched the flames. "This is just the start, right?" he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. Hannah nodded, her heart steady. "Just the start," she said, her voice a promise. She thought of Vanessa's email still unanswered and decided to let it go. Some battles don't need fighting, she realized. Some people find their own way. She leaned into Julian, the future stretching before them like the ocean, vast, uncharted, but theirs to navigate. The next day, Hannah received a donation to Hope Rising, a hefty sum anonymous, but with a note. "Keep shining, V." Was it Vanessa seeking redemption, or someone else inspired by Hannah's fight? The mystery lingered, a quiet spark of hope in a world that still had room for change. Hannah and Julian had won this round, but what new challenges awaited, and would their love carry them through the storms yet to come?